Emily Powers here, reporting from a brutal crime scene in which John Smith Sr. found his son, John Smith Jr., lying murdered in his living room. Let's take it to the forensic lab to see what actually happened.
Hi Emily, Forensics here, and I'm here to tell you how we used amplification of DNA from the crime scene for two different VNTR loci and ran them on separate gels to create fingerprints to figure out that John's sister Jane was the murderer. Here we have two separate gels for loci 1 and loci 2, each with a piece of DNA from the crime scene, the victim's DNA, and the DNA of 4 different suspects, one of which is the DNA of John Smith Sr., labeled Dad. To get these gels, we used electrophoresis, in which DNA is amplified and negatively charged DNA fragments migrate toward the positive pole of the gel at a rate that is inversely proportional to the fragment size. We can look at the placement of the fragments or bands on the gels to determine whose DNA was found at the crime scene. Right away, we can eliminate suspect 1, because the bands displayed don't exactly match either of the fingerprint DNA from both loci 1 and 2 found at the crime scene. Suspect 4 can also be eliminated because while its bands match exactly the DNA found at the crime scene at locus 2, it does not match at locus 1. Using this logic, we can also tell that the DNA found at the crime scene was not the victim's, because while the victim's DNA matches exactly at locus 1, it does not match the band pattern of the crime scene DNA at locus 2. Suspect 2, John Smith Sr., matches one band at each loci, but does not match both exactly, so we can eliminate his DNA as what was found at the crime scene. So all we have left is suspect 3, which matches the bands of the DNA of each loci exactly, meaning it was this person's DNA found at the crime scene, making them the murderer. But how did we figure out it was John's sister? A biological parent's DNA will share one band on the locus with their child, as we can see with the victim and his father at each loci. However, we can also see this with John Sr. and suspect 3, sharing one band at each loci, indicating John Sr. is the biological parent of both the victim and suspect 3. Since John Jr. only has one sibling, we can conclude that the DNA found at the crime scene is his sister Jane's and that she is the murderer of her brother.